Hello, second graders. So, what we're going to be learning today is something that we've only talked about a little tiny bit, but I think you all know something about it already. Okay, but since it's on the assessment, I think it's really important we'll go over it one more time. So, today we are going to be recording time like we always have, but we're going to be using something called AM and PM. So, let's get started. I want everyone to take a look at this clock right here. What time does it say? Can we tell what time this clock says in a snap? I bet we can. It says 7 o'clock. I would like everyone to take a second to pause the video, and I'm going to also give you a chance to call this out to somebody who's near you, just to a friend, to a parent, to a stuffed animal. Just call it out like we would in the classroom. Tell me, what would you usually do at 7 o'clock during the day? Okay, pause the video if you want some more time to think about it. What is something you do around 7 o'clock? Are you ready? Okay, so when I tried to answer this question, I thought of a few different things. I know that every morning I leave for work around 7 o'clock. That's the time I usually leave my house to get to school. I also know that 7 o'clock is the time that I take to read a chapter of my book before I get ready to go to bed. They're both at 7 o'clock, but one is at 7 o'clock in the morning and one is at 7 o'clock in the evening. Let's keep that in mind. Let's take a look at this new diagram. Okay, so we say that midnight is technically the start of every single day. Okay, so if we are sleeping at 11:30 at night on Tuesday, if we wake up in 1 hour and it's 12:30 in the morning, it would technically be Wednesday. We start each day at midnight, which is 12 o'clock, and we end each day at midnight, which is also 12 o'clock. Does anyone know what time the middle of the day would be called? So we have this diagram. We have the beginning of the day, end of the day, both at 12 o'clock midnight. Does anyone know what this time right here would be called? Pause the video if you want some more time to think about it. I bet you all know. It's a term we use all the time in school. Are you ready? It's called noon. It's called noon. And it's actually 12 o'clock too. Okay? The middle of the day, the middle of the day is 12 o'clock, but it's 12 o'clock noon. What are some things you do at noon? Anyone know? I know I eat lunch usually at noon. That's usually what we do at noon. Okay? That's what we did at noon in school too. So all of this time after 12 o'clock could be called the afternoon. Like how we say, good afternoon. We wouldn't say good afternoon way up here during the day, right? We would say it after 12 o'clock noon. What are some things you do in the afternoon? Pause the video if you want some more time to think about it. Call them out. What are some things you do in the afternoon after 12 o'clock in the middle of the day? I know that afternoon we usually get packed up and go home from school. I know that I eat dinner in the afternoon. I know I usually read some of my book in the afternoon. You know what? We have specials. When we go to school, we have specials in the afternoon. Okay? So, there are letters that we add to times to show whether they are before noon or after noon. Have you seen those letters before? They're called AM and PM. So AM is in the morning. AM is this orange section up here. Everything that is above midday or above noon. Okay? Everything is AM. So 11 o'clock before noon would be AM. 12 o'clock midnight is AM. 1 o'clock is AM. 1 o'clock in the night is AM. Okay, so PM is everything that is afternoon. PM is the white space down here. I'm going to give you a chance to pause the video and to call out some stuff and talk about what you would do in the AM. So right now we're talking about the orange section. What's some stuff you do in AM? Are you ready? So I thought about this too. I eat breakfast in the AM. We go to school in the AM, okay? I get dressed for the day in the AM. Sometime, let's think about our schedule when we are at school. We eat breakfast in the AM. We have math in the AM because we have math before we go to lunch. We have math before noon in the middle of the day. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you a chance to pause the video and talk about some things you would do in the PM. What would you do after noon, after the middle of the day? Are you ready? We come home from school. In the afternoon, we have dinner. In the afternoon, if you play a sport, if you did wrestling or any soccer or anything, that would be done in the PM. That would be done after school, after noon even. We brush our teeth to go to bed in the AM. In the PM, I'm sorry, in the afternoon, in the evening. Those are all different names for what we would call the time after noon, after 12 o'clock, after the middle of the day. Okay, so midnight, let's talk about midnight for a second. This time right here and up here. Midnight is always AM because it is the beginning of the day. I know that might be confusing because we go to bed, we're usually asleep at midnight, but it doesn't matter. That is still the beginning of the day. The last time that would have the time PM would be 11:59. And that's just because that is only 1 minute before midnight, before 12 o'clock AM. When the clock strikes midnight, it's AM again. It goes from PM and then it switches to AM. That means 12 o'clock noon is what time do you think? AM or PM? It's PM. Because if it were AM, we would get confused whether it were midnight or noon, okay? Does that make sense? So noon is when it switches to PM. Everything from noon, from 12 o'clock and after is PM. That means 12:01 after noon is PM. That also means 11:59 before noon is AM. So it's a little bit confusing, and the hardest part, I would say, to remember the difference, to figure out, to tell time in AM and PM, is just to remember which one AM is and then which one PM is. And the way that I remember it is that P or AM, A is the first letter in the alphabet. Okay? It's the first thing you say, just like morning is the first thing you do in the morning, is the first thing to start your day. And then P comes later in the alphabet, PM comes later in the day. That's how I remember it. If you have another way to remember it, go ahead, okay? It's just all up to you.